Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. I am Marc Givler, joined by Tony Gerdeman today. Tony, have you survived? I'm not going to power pause you, but have you survived Las Vegas?
Survived after walking up and down the strip Thursday night. My dogs were barking afterwards, but back home, happy to be home, and got about a few days of rest before camp starts. So looking forward to these next few days before really getting going on the college football season.
Would you endorse a return to Vegas for the Big Ten Media Days?
I would not. I would not do that. There's a lot of media that didn't go because it was so far away, so cost prohibitive, and so much of the media that covers Big Ten can just drive to these things. And there were times that the Oregon players and the all of the West Coast players were there. There's more Ohio State beat than other beats, and so there's no point to go out west. The interesting thing was that Commissioner Tony Petitti said the move from Indianapolis this season was a logistical thing where Lucas Oil couldn't hold it, and apparently the only other place in the nation or planet Earth that could was Mandalay Bay and Las Vegas.
So Chicago,
no,
Detroit, Cleveland,
no,
Columbus,
no,
Cincinnati.
no. In
Pittsburgh.
fact, no, too many of those places are like filmed. There's a lot of movies being filmed in a lot of those civic areas. But we were on Radio Row, Tom and I was listening to a Nebraska radio show, and they're like, it's so big now. Like, this place is huge. I don't think Chicago could even hold it anymore. There's no place to have it because there's no football stadium indoors that could do it or whatever. And I don't. Clearly, he's never been to the McCormick Place where the Big Ten media has been before, which dwarfs. It's like one of the largest buildings in America, and it's a 20-minute walk from one corner to the other, which this was as well, because there's a lot of buildings in Las Vegas that are connected, and it makes it an easy walk, but there's a lot of walking.
No doubt. Yeah, well, I was kind of joking on Twitter. I said I think the only worst place for this thing would be LA. Because that's even more expensive and it's even further away for most of the Big Ten beat. But so we'll see. Hopefully it's back in Indy next year or Chicago even. I would settle for that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they decide to do. I do find it odd that the Big Ten and Lucas Oil and the fine folks there didn't they kind of know this is every year. They weren't on the same page here somehow. I don't.
There's a 2025 football season. Nobody told us.
That didn't add up to me when I heard that either. But oh well. We're going to talk about recruiting because this is the recruiting podcast for BuckeyeHuddle.com. But you were able to talk to Ross Bjork. You and Tom were able to talk to Ross Bjork in Las Vegas, and it's almost outdated now because of all the insanity that's going on. But the theme of this show is to kind of talk about what is going on with the NIL rules, and now the government's involved, which is always all sorts of interesting. First of all, where does Ross Bjork stand on things right now? After you've talked to him, after the executive order from the president came out, where do you think Ohio State sits right now? Are they full go on NIL, or are they or now with the executive order, are they going to have to continue to kind of wait and see before they maybe deploy all of their resources?
Right. And the executive order, one of the parts about the third party NIL thing where the executive order, which again, an executive order is a suggestion to, hey, if you would like to maybe make this a law, kind of feel free and please do so because this is what the president wants. But the order prohibits third-party pay-for-play payments, but it does not apply to third-party legitimate fair market deals for players. So that's now we can all just kind of roll our eyes at what is pay-for-play and what isn't. So if you've got collectives or third-party organizations setting up deals for players to lure them to your place, I guess as long as it's fair market and it's a legitimate business purpose, then things are okay. But we've seen schools that this is how they've been getting recruits. And so there's this line between enticing and telling your recruit, this is what awaits this is what our players get. This is what you would be in line for. And so with Ross, like it's funny because Tom talked to him for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then about 2 minutes after that, Ross Dellinger's story came out that the House settlement attorneys were going to be and the NCAA were going to relax what a valid business was. That way, the deals that were getting denied by collectives or from collectives could maybe not be denied. So Tom talked to him before that, and I had some questions after talking with Tom. I'm like, well, did he tell you this? Did he tell you that? And so then I was going to go get some clarification. And as I'm waiting in line to talk to Ross about the clarification, I think Kevin texted us with the story from Ross Dellinger. And so like I'm holding my phone in my hand. I'm like, Ross, looks like the rules on collectives and third parties are going to be relaxed. Like, well, it's, he didn't want to comment too much because it's just, reading something on a phone and it's not official yet. But he did say, regardless of what you call it, collectives or third party deals, like Ohio State will be ready to go. They just need to know the rules. And what he told Tom in that first interview is Ohio State will always be on the right side of the equation, meaning the right side of the rules. And what they didn't want to do through this whole thing, and some fans absolutely hated it, they didn't want to make a promise to a player or a recruit or whatever that couldn't be followed through on. And that was another thing that Ryan Day said, that it would be a bad look for Ohio State, and they don't want to ever look bad to make a promise or a kind of like allude to a deal that wouldn't happen. So that's why they've been so, I guess you would say, conservative in how they've been approaching this. But as I talked with Ross when after this thing came down, he said Ohio State's we're plug and play. Like the Buckeye sports group that they have, the media or the marketing arm is ready to go, and it's been going. They just needed to clear up the gray area to know how much more they could go. Kind of like when you get to, I don't know, like out in the middle of Wyoming where there is no speed limits. Like we just need to know what the speed limit is, and so that way we can know how fast to go.
It feels like Ohio State has the money cannon loaded, but they're afraid to pull the trigger right now. That's what it feels like to me from talking to people more on the recruiting side of things. Is that the indication you got from Ross Bjork?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the other things is, he believes the Buckeye sports group that they have, which again, this is where kind of they brought the guys in from the collective and from the collectives to advise on this marketing arm that Ohio State has, where they can direct, or the Buckeye sports group can put players and deals together basically. And he said he calls it a huge advantage for Ohio State. So they've got all these businesses, they've got all of these people that want to help. It's just a matter of what this is like Ross, like what we can't do right now is just fire that money cannon, because that's not a legal thing to do. But as the legality of it, the definition of a valid business purpose gets stretched a little to include what collectives tend to do, which is an autograph show, a charity thing. Like those start to fall perhaps under this, because again, all of these deals still have to be submitted to NIL Go. The thing is, the NIL Go has kind of been advised to allow a more leniency towards these things. Now we'll see if they get passed and how many don't. But Ohio State seems equipped to then compete and excel, if you will, at what the rules will allow, which is now maybe a better understanding until something new happens.
It used to be compliance that Ohio State had to listen to. Now it's legal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It used to be compliance kind of set the guidelines for the school. Now it's OSU legal, because they've got to interpret all this, right? I mean, and I know people have argued with me a little bit about this, but you can show me the organizational chart that shows who's in charge, who's not in charge. But the bottom line is that if OSU legal says no, the answer is no. whether you're Ryan Day, whether you're Ross Bjork, whether you're the president of the university. If OSU Legal says no, the answer is no. And if you go against OSU Legal in that way, you very much risk losing your job. So OSU Legal is now deciphering all of this stuff, but with new information every day, whether it's like new legislation being introduced, the president randomly putting out an executive order that seems very much like what we already thought the rules were, didn't really actually, it seemed like a lot of headlines for not a lot of actual new information. You know, how much does OSU Legal now kind of control when OSU can fire the money cannon?
Well, and that was initially, why is Ohio State slow playing things? One of the things that Ross said was that the settlement came later than expected, like months later than expected. So then it becomes a matter of, okay, let's talk to legal about what we can do and what we can't do. So then that shrinks your timeline to go off and load the cannon and fire the cannon and do all of those things. And now, like, everything that comes down, it has to go right back to legal. What can we do? What does this executive order mean? The SCORE Act, which came after, which is part of trying to get through Congress right now. So you had the House settlement, which Ross called the framework, but you always need congressional help. The SCORE Act is some more of that, foundation and drywall and plumbing and electrical. So all of these things are going into building this house. And then the executive order is really very much similar to the SCORE Act from Congress. So I think all of these things, like each of these things looks like a portion of the other, but it's like, yeah, that's, if you build a house, you're going to recognize all of the different steps as, what are you just building a house? Yes. It takes all of it to build this and put it together. And then you get the antitrust stuff that they need to secure the ability to pay players, but also limit payments to players and things like that. Because that's also really that's the entire gist of a lot of why the NCAA enforcement is in play forever, and that's why all of these laws or these SCORE acts and these things, it's like limiting what players can be paid by unscrupulous people. And that's really that's been all of the NCAA probation things for decades is, somebody gets caught giving money or accepting money. And so to be able to limit that and then keep it within the rules, you need some sort of legal help. And these are all different steps to make that happen. And Ohio State, they don't want to be on the wrong side legal. They can be on the wrong side in terms of, we thought it was going to go this way, but it went that way. And maybe that's what's happened here, where they're always going to be okay with being on the wrong side of guessing. They don't want to be on the wrong side of guessing legally wrong. So here, rules have shifted. So then we can now, they can now move forward. Whereas if the rules hadn't shifted, then Ohio State's decision would have been in the right. So legally and then also practically, but the legal side of it is always going to be now kind of what directs them, because as Ryan Day said, the gray area, which this whole thing is, drives him insane. And so any type of clarity you can begin to build, then you can get out of the legal way, because legal knows and gives you an answer. So legal really is no longer a part of it, because you have your answer and you know what is legal. So you don't have to keep going to legal. Like, hey, can we recruit this kid? Can we recruit that kid? Like, legal has nothing to do with that. You now know the rules, and that's all they're waiting for, is to know the rules so that they can then move forward and be the aggressive entity that they want to be.
Here's the risk, though, of waiting. I'm not convinced this is going to be a quick process, because I'm fully convinced at this point that anything that actually gets through and gets accepted and gets approved or agreed upon, however you want to look at this, there's going to be legal challenges to it coming from the players. You can't tell me that one trip to a children's hospital isn't worth $1 million. How are you going to tell me that that's too much money for my time that day? That's going to, without them becoming employees, we are in my opinion, going to exist in nothing but a gray area.
And
Legally.
that's what, yeah. And that's why you've got so many, like the SCORE Act, and then whatever deals players will eventually sign, they'll have to probably agree to these things. Yeah, right. And the other thing is so many players don't necessarily want to be employees, don't want to be part of a union, because hey, I'm only here for 3 years. I don't need, like, I'm 3 and out. Why would I risk a year of striking or whatever and limit myself? I've got myself to worry about. Whereas all of these other pro leagues, like, you're thinking about 5 years, 10 years, but not just then, but you're thinking, I need pension. Like, so you're thinking, some people are thinking 40 years down the road. Nobody in college, other than you, like the degree side of it, you're thinking, you're supposed to be thinking 40 years down the road. A lot of these guys, why would they? Because they're going to be jumping into another union in 3 or 4 years. So this is just one small step, one little bit of time where they can make some money, but then the NFL is the real money. And you mentioned, like, a player taking somebody to court for limiting what they could make. They're going to have people trying to give them money that will join that fight, where we're trying to give him the money, so you can't tell him he's not worth it. And that's where you have to, I guess maybe at that point there still can't be a cap, because there's no cap on NIL, in terms of there's no NFL cap on NIL. So I don't know that you necessarily cap that. I think at that point you just let the market settle itself, and then you maybe just try to keep up. I think really that's all you can do. But again, the enforcement arm of it, then the CFC, where they're going to probably be looking harder at what are pay for play. Like, this is clearly just an inducement. Is there something that they will do about that? They want to be quicker about all of these things. The NCAA investigations, Michigan's still, a couple months away or a month away from finding out about something that happened back in 21, 22, and 23. They want to be a lot quicker with these things, and it's one guy handing down the punishment. So you would hope they've gone through all of these troubles to put in rules, that they would take the rule breakers seriously. And now, with things have been so Wild West for a long time, once the law comes to town, it'll be interesting to see how much things keep going on. Because as Ross Bjork said, if you can't be paying recruits, that's the one thing. Like, you cannot give recruits money. If you do, you've endangered yourself, and you've endangered that recruit. So any school or any collective that is, paying a kid money right now, it can't happen. It's not supposed to happen. And so there needs to be enforcement if that is happening. That's the other thing that people keep talking about. Now that we've got these rules, let's enforce them, because they don't mean anything if we're not enforcing them.
A lot to unpack there, so I'm going to try to unpack two things. One, I think the dirty little secret that no one wants to really admit, because there's a lot of I see a lot of people on Twitter screaming, make them employees. Let them union. The players need to unionize, all that other stuff. Here's the dirty little secret to that. Most of the players don't want to be employees. They don't. And I think people assume they do. They don't. They kind of like how this is working for them right now without the hassle of a union. So that's like the dirty little secret, is that I don't think anybody wants them to be employed. I don't think the schools want them to be employees. I don't think the players want to be employees. You'll find some who maybe do, but I think if you did a poll, the majority would side with, we don't want to be employees, or we don't want the players to be employees. Mm-hmm. And so that's I think the dirty little secret here, that people who are just screaming, make them employees. And it's not that simple. You can't make someone an employee that doesn't want to be an employee. So there's a lot to unpack there. And so I don't know what the answer is there, other than, again, just some type of waiver, as you alluded to, where you're agreeing to abide by a certain set of rules in order to maintain your eligibility as a college athlete. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. And you hope, if you're on the Ohio State side of this thing, you're hoping that this is done sooner rather than later, because the longer this goes, the longer the wheels continue to spin here in the mud, the more the schools who aren't really caring about this and just kind of doing what they're doing, are gaining an advantage. And you can sit here and hope that, in 2 years or 6 months or whenever, that people are going to go back and look at this and be like, yeah, you guys were clearly like breaking the rules. Like you guys were going 150 and a 60. Like you guys were not just going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. Like you were going 3 times the speed limit, flipping off the cops on the way through. Like you would hope those people get dealt with, but history kind of shows us maybe not, that may not happen. So that's an issue for Ohio State. Here's the other thing that you mentioned that I did want to talk about. You can't pay recruits. I got news for people. Recruits are being paid right now. They're being paid to commit. They're being paid monthly payments by certain schools to stay committed. They're getting checks every month to stay committed. It's unbelievable. And I do wonder, and people are going to laugh, and there are probably people out there, sure that's happening, Mark, sure that's happening. I told everyone during COVID, I said, schools are hosting visitors right now, and they're not supposed to be. I said that during COVID. People laughed at me. No, they're not. No one would be that dumb. No one, how would they get away with it? And sure enough, very quickly we found out that multiple schools, and there's schools that didn't get busted for it that were doing it, but multiple schools that I knew were doing it got busted for it. Michigan and Arizona State are 2 of them that got raked, over the coals by the media, the public, for doing this. So that was happening then. I said it was happening, and sure enough, this is happening now. I promise you this is happening. Schools are paying for commitments and paying monthly payments to keep those commitments. So it's going to be interesting to see if this is, something that the NCAA is able to prove and kind of catch teams or schools red-handed on. Is there going to be real punishment for this?
Well, at that point, does it just go back to the old rules where any money that a player has received and makes them ineligible? When we've seen in years in basketball playing over in the European League, you are now ineligible. So there are things that they would have to pay it back.
Taking so long to get to this point of clarity that many of these situations, those kids you hope are still in school, I guess. So there could be some of these kids might not even be in school anymore, or they may have transferred twice already before this even gets figured out at the snail's pace these things move. I guess that's the thing here is okay, if a kid in in the 2024 class or something was getting monthly payments to remain committed and sign with that school, and it's 2028 now, and we're finally getting around to punishing schools, and that kid's already in the NFL or out of college or whatever it might be, how are we even going to figure this out?
And the other portion of this with collectives, because it's collectives, I guess that would be the folks paying recruits at that point, because it's one hand away, one degree of separation away from.
We didn't do that. The collectives did it.
Exactly. But are those considered boosters? And we know boosters can't pay recruits. So there's that aspect of it as well. And, even the ones, the deals that are probably legitimate to like Felix Ojo, right? Where his was, if the rules are relaxed, it's a $1.3 million deal, whatever. If the rules are not relaxed, it's going to be about $400,000 or $500,000. That's his agent is out there talking about these things, which it's a wild time to be alive. But the fact that, even, I guess that's a good agent, like a trusted agent, like a guy that is on the just one you can trust and is following the rules because he's giving you 2 different deals. If it's crazy, if it's Wild West, here's your deal. But if it's not, here's your deal. Here's our deal. Because I guess if he was unscrupulous, then it would just be here's the biggest money we can get. And there is no but if we follow the rules, then it's this much lower. And now, again, all of these deals still have to pass through NIL Go. So it's not just firing off a money cannon and stuff. You still have to, I think at this point now you would have to show up at least for the autograph signing, which before there were players who'd never showed up on anything for any of their NIL deals.
Trusted agent. Okay.
Well, and that was another part of the, I think the executive order and the SCORE Act is limiting how much the agents can make. Because some of these agents are pulling 10 to 20% off of these kids, which is insane.
Well, some of these agents have no experience in any of this, and they're just I'm an NIL agent. I'm like, what? Like, did you take a course? Did you like have to learn anything about this? Did you have to pass any type of test? Did you have to, has your character been tested in a way that like would make you reliable to a 16 or 17-year-old and his parents who have never been through anything like this? Nope. Like, they got to totally overhaul that to start. Because when you say trusted agent, I'm like, I don't know how many of those are there. There are a lot of people looking to take advantage of the situation right now.
Yeah, and
in this landscape,
and a number of different varieties, because this is a brand new commercial market that is available to like what can we serve and serve ourselves doing so. But yeah, the agent side of things, there needs to be certification yesterday, because there are a lot of people being taken advantage of, and I think if it's the SCORE Act or the executive order wanting to limit the commission and the cut by, to like maybe 3 or 5% tops, which then that also maybe cuts out a lot of people who are like, well, it's not worth my time to do this, which is good, because the number of people classifying themselves as agents throughout all of these NIL deals is incredible. I think I saw an article where there's maybe like, I don't know, like 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 people that are now like listed as agents in this thing, which, come on.
Yeah, they got it. That's almost, if it's not step one, it's step two, like that of this. Like, okay, I know you have to have guidelines for the actual distribution of NIL money and what constitutes a legitimate deal. Like, I know you got to have that under control. You got to get this agent stuff under control. There are like so many, like, the third uncle has become like legitimized somehow in all of this and is now like able to legally take a cut without any like proof that they know what they're doing, that they have, any standard of ethics that they have to abide by, like nothing. So like, that's got to be a huge thing here too. So these kids and their families aren't getting taken advantage of. And I know the schools don't want to be dealing with them. That's the other, like, they do not want to be dealing with these people, with a lot of them. I mean, there are absolutely people who are attached to legitimate sports agencies that I know are doing the right things here. But like a lot of these other people that aren't, the schools want nothing to do with these people.
Yeah. You took the words right out of my mouth, the Urban Meyer third uncle thing, where he would just lament these, as he coined them, the third uncle. And there's no certification for a third uncle. And a lot of those third uncles are now listed as agents. So that gives you an idea of how qualified they are to be there and whose interests they have in mind, and really how shallow the thinking is on what is best for the player, because a lot of the third uncles think what's best for the player is an extra $12,000 from a particular program without looking at what the other program might bring them.
Exactly. And that's the other thing, is you've got people who are like, again, like, I get it. If one school's offering you $300,000 and another school's offering you $1.2 million, that's a really hard thing to turn down. But you've got agents squeezing every dollar they can out of these deals, and it's like, okay, you've got 3 schools right in the same ballpark, and you're just trying to play them against each other and get $1 extra here, $1 extra there. How about looking if the head coach is on the hot seat? How about looking like how long the assistant coach has been there, his track record? How about looking about the degree or the area of education that the player wants to, explore? What about the development? What about how many players at your position has that program or that coaching staff or that position coach sent to the NFL at the position you play? Like, those are all still important things here. And I've been pro paying players since day one. I feel it'd be hypocritical not to in our position, almost, because we make money covering the sport. Like, shouldn't the players that we cover, that we get paid to cover, shouldn't they get paid? Like, it's kind of hypocritical for me to sit here and say they shouldn't get paid. So I've always been pro paying players but we got to get this under control a little bit. And like, the NCAA just completely was content to not do this. They've lost billions of dollars over the years in legal fees fighting this. And then when it was clear they were about to take the final, kill shot, they just put their hands up and said, fine, you guys take care of it. We're not even going to assist in the transition or putting guardrails in. And we're going to like almost burn our own house down. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And so here we are now, and they've just got to get this back on the rails. And there is a way to do it. This isn't impossible. We are not trying to cure cancer here. There is a way to compensate players fairly and also not completely destroy the sport. Like, the idea that it can't be done is so absurd. I can't even begin to rant about it. Like, it's definitely something that can be done. So they just need to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, and I've said this on Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning. I've said this on the Buckeye Weekly podcast. A couple of years ago, Congress said, "We will help you. We will not save you," to the NCAA. And so you get the House settlement. As I said, that's like the structure of the framework of the House, and then Congress comes in, and eventually something is going to happen there to start building that up and codifying everything and legalizing everything, so that the House settlement lasts for 10 years, but the laws would last much longer than that. And will they be challenged? Probably, but if it's law, then why fight it for a couple
operate
hundred
under that law until it's
Right.
challenged and changed, and then you have to from there move forward with how you operate under a new law, but you're not going to get punished for following what was law. So not to cut you off there, but I see exactly what you're saying there, and that's probably the practical way to go about it if you're a school. But gosh, this all seems to be slowing Ohio State down, doesn't it?
And like I said, the settlement took longer than expected, and so that I think that allowed a lot of other schools that were not going to limit themselves to go out there. But then, I was talking was on a show with a Texas reporter 3.5 weeks ago, and he was talking about the way he was talking about what Texas was doing. It was the exact same thing as Ohio State. They're going to slow down. They're going to wait to see what happens. And then like 2 days later, Texas just went on a tear. So it's like they decided we're done slow playing this. So like it apparently can go just like that. Now the problem is at least one or two of those targets that Texas went and I think grabbed were also on Ohio State's radar. So then the question becomes, how quickly can Ohio State catch up from this lead that a bunch of people, but some other schools have had? And it's not every school. I know Ohio State fans like to think this is every school out in front, and Ohio State's been the only school holding back. That's not the case. But when you see this school and that school and that school, it feels like every school when your targets are going away. And I'm fascinated to see what happens if Ohio State can suddenly start, somebody that was committed to Texas or whatever is like, yes, I'm going to take a visit in the fall to Ohio State. And because I think deals can't be signed for a recruit, or a recruit cannot receive money until they are on campus as a student athlete. I think they can start signing potential deals, like future deals, like maybe August 1st with the scholarship stuff the offers that are out there. But again, like I'm like, are there buyouts in these things before is there a penalty? Because there can't be a buyout if you've not received anything. So I guess it just depends on these deals. And then if there is a penalty, is that just, does the school pay that? The next school pay that? And then I think there is something where if there is a buyout that needs to be paid by one school to another, that has to come out of the rev share rather than the third party NIL stuff. So there's all like little intricacies in there where like this is why legal needs to be sitting on stuff for a month going through it. And that's why we're all just waiting here, twiddling our thumbs, figuring out like what's taking so long.
The lawyers win again, Tony. The lawyers always win. They always win. It's unbelievable. They're undefeated. The lawyers are undefeated.
It's like hypothetical SEC matchups. That is lawyers.
Hypothetical SEC matchup and lawyers. Yes, the two. And death and taxes are the undefeated things in our society right now. Yes, so that's why I continue to predict that. And again, I'm not sitting here saying this is necessarily going to be some like great Ohio State windfall in November or December. But what I'm just saying in general across college football recruiting is we are in for an even wilder November, December than anything we've ever seen. And we've already seen some crazy stuff the last several years. So it's going to be even crazier. I think there's going to be promises that aren't going to be able to be kept. Things are going to have to be walked back. You're going to have your normal cold feet from recruits. You're going to have your normal desperation offers that come in the end. It's like a perfect storm of chaos that's going to be descending upon college football recruiting here in November and December. And we'll see if Ohio State's going to be on the good or the bad side of it. I think they've positioned themselves to be able to maybe benefit from it. But we'll see. We won't know until we know. So we will keep an eye on that, of course. Stay locked on at BuckeyeHuddle.com as we get ready for fall camp. We are going to be at 3 practices at the end of the week, the end of this coming week. Those will be open. So stay tuned to BuckeyeHuddle.com and, of course, here on YouTube for coverage of those practices. Hopefully some video of the practices, hopefully certainly some analysis of the practices and some observations. And then obviously we're here, man, like the season's like here. So we're, I'm not Tom Moore. I'm not going to give you the exact days. I'm not smart enough to do that math, but we're like, we're like 34 days or something like that from kickoff. It's something in that ballpark. So it's happening. So it's here. We're going to be on top of things at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We're going to be on top of things here at the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. Tony, any parting thoughts on the craziness we're experiencing right now with the government?
Regarding sports?
Yeah. Yes, we stick to sports on this channel, Tony. Yes. Yes.
I will just say one of the things Brian Day did say was it can create a culture issue if some of your highest paid players are the ones that aren't playing. So that is also something to keep in mind when it comes to recruits. Now, Mark, you also know they have made some very large deals to recruits that fell through. Like not that the deal wasn't there, but that the recruit signed elsewhere. So they're willing to put the money out there, but it's also something that they take seriously when it comes to the locker room.
Yeah, no question. I think that's the one thing that regardless of what the rules are, regardless of how much money you're spending, what your budget is, you do have to, and fans do have to realize this, you cannot bring in a high school kid and pay him more than your star receiver, your star quarterback, your star running back, your star safety. Like, it's just not sustainable to do things that way. So regardless of what the budget is, that's got to be a constant thing of culture and everything else. We saw the schools that, I said this on Twitter the other day, the schools that tried to be the pioneers of NIL failed spectacularly. Mm-hmm. That Texas A&M class was a disaster on the field. It was a disaster in the locker room. Half those kids have transferred, probably more than half those kids have transferred. It was an absolute disaster by trying to be the pioneers of NIL. So I think, and it hasn't really worked at Miami. They were better last year. They didn't really beat anybody, and because they didn't get in the playoffs because of it. But they've had their issues as well. We've seen the bad headlines that have popped up around the country over some of this stuff. And so Ohio State, there is something to be said. Obviously, Ohio State just won a national championship, so hey, there's that. If you needed anything else that Ohio State's doing okay, the national championship a few months ago. But there's something to be said that Ohio State hasn't been blasted in the headlines over their mishandling of an NIL situation, over promises they couldn't keep, or paying a bunch of money and having a class blow up because of it. There's something to be said for not being involved in any of those, mini scandals. It's not really scandals, but those types of bad, poor, negative publicity. So we'll see how things go here. And yeah, they're not broke, folks. They just seem to be, they're like, in investing terms, like they're sitting on a lot of cash right now. Like they're not invested. They haven't they're ready to deploy the cash. They just haven't found the right stock yet, or I guess, I don't know how else to put it, but the money cannon is loaded. We'll see when they're able to fire it. Thank you, Tony, for doing this. Get some rest after Vegas, and we will be back this week to talk more recruiting, and we'll get back in the individual players, and we'll get out. We'll let the federal government continue to do what they do. So thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we will talk to you soon.